Hi there, my name is Brett Fish Anderson, and I am on a journey of anti-racism that will most likely take me the rest of my life. I'm busy writing or finishing a book called 50 Ideas for White People Who Are Asking, but what can I do? And so the idea is finding a number of practical ideas and suggestions that people can use to help them on their journey of anti-racism. And so I thought, while I'm writing the book, while I'm looking for a publisher, while I'm trying to get this out there, what better way than to make a series of videos that share the practical tips I've already found, some that have been helpful to me, some that I'm still busy doing in my journey away from racism. And so I'm hoping you will find this helpful too. If you do, then please make sure you subscribe, which is going to be over there somewhere. Push the little bell, which tells you when a new video is out, and then share these on social media. If you find them helpful for you, share them with your friends, and let's journey and learn together. I'm hoping you'll engage with this content. I'm hoping that you will ask questions, that you will throw thoughts back at me, that this will be a conversation that you have with your friends, with people in and around your life as well. So join me and race with me. So if you're a white person asking, but what can I do when it comes to race, especially in South Africa? For me, one of the best starting points is to just go and read. Start reading up on your history. I went through an apartheid school system where the history was completely whitewashed and biased and gave us one particular point of view. And so when I realized the need for myself to get into these conversations and to really start learning and working in my own anti-racism, one of the first things I did was just start reading as much as I could alternative pictures and perspectives on the history of South Africa. Two books that I found super helpful, and there are lots more books, lots more stories, but the two that I want to recommend are Robert Sobukwe, How Can Man Die Better? The book is by Benjamin Pogrund, but it tells the story of Robert Sobukwe, and until I read this, I did not know who he was. I'd heard the name, but I was fortunate enough to be able to spend a weekend at Robben Island and kind of hear a bit of the deeper history and maybe see some of the things that you don't see when you go on the normal tour. So we were there for 3 days, and as I left the island, I saw this book and I picked it up and I started slowly getting to know and understand the story of Robert Sobukwe. And I really honestly believe he is the leader that South Africa missed out on. Just such an incredible insight and wisdom, and it really just seems from people that knew him and connected with him that he was just such an incredible person. And so I mourn the loss of him. But I think it's so helpful to dig into his writings and his words and writings about him and get to know him a little bit. The second book is Steve Biko, I Write What I Like. And when I read that the first time, I found it quite difficult to get into. But I'm presently reading this book, which is from the Voices of Liberation series. And it's the book on Steve Biko. It's by Derek Hook. And I've found, for some reason, I've been able to get into this a little bit more. It's resonated a little bit more with me. It is some of his speeches, some interviews with him, and a whole bunch of his writing from I Write What I Like. And I honestly believe that if you're trying to understand and be better as a white person in South Africa, that you really have to engage with the person and writings of Robert Sobukwe and Steve Biko. I think they should be compulsory reading for white South Africans, probably for everyone. We have to understand them. We have to understand the history and a different perspective on South Africa to really understand what things are now and how we need to live and act. And then the third book that I'm going to throw in is by a white American, so all the problems that go with that. But it's a really incredibly helpful book. It's called White Fragility by Robin DeAngelo. And she was in South Africa end of last year as well. And I found her videos and her book super helpful in terms of finding a lot of the language for these things that I'm learning and starting to understand: white privilege, white fragility, allyship, a whole bunch of these different terms. She explains them really well, really challengingly, and through a bunch of, as I said, analogies that I found really helpful. So those are really good place to start. How Can Man Die Better? I Write What I Like, or The Voices of Liberation book on Steve Biko, and then White Fragility with Rob and Angelo. And as I said, lots more stories, lots more places to read, but start doing the work, start researching, start reading, and then there's also blogs and videos and more up-to-date present literature that's being written, but start to do the work of trying to understand both the history and the present, and so that we can start to understand how better to live in it. If you found that helpful, and if you find these ongoing videos helpful, please hit subscribe, share them with your friends. Let's get this conversation happening with as many people as possible. And I'm going to make them as practical as I can. There are going to be things that are really easy. There are going to be some things that are really challenging and maybe a little more controversial. But reading, I think, is an easy one and a good place to begin. Thank you for hanging out with me. See you next time.